All right, guys, welcome back to Mental Health on the Mic. I'm Bennett here with Lorraine Afinier. Lorraine, another
Hello.
week. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. I'm so excited for this episode. It's gonna be great.
So this week, Lorraine, we have a guest I'm really excited about. Her name is Abby Dodge, and we went to school together, somehow became Facebook friends, and I found out about a year ago or so that she was on her journey of sobriety. And I
Mhm.
found her posts really inspiring and just the positivity. She expressed so much gratitude and appreciation for the people in her life. And so I was really inspired. And then I saw that she wrote an article in a nonprofit called Rage Against Addiction, and I was so moved by what she had to say. And so I reached out. I am so honored to have Abby on our show. So let's welcome Abby.
Welcome.
Hello.
I told Lorraine in our intro a little bit about you and your story. So, in your own words, if you could tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself, and just your journey.
Yeah. So my name's Abby. I run a halfway house right now in Maryland. And honestly, a year ago today, I like wouldn't have seen this happening. Um, I guess I'll just start from the beginning. I was adopted when I was super young and from Russia. And I grew up I'm an only child also. And I grew up in a really great neighborhood and I had lots of friends growing up and I swam, I did sports, like all kinds of sports, but I like stuck with swimming. And then I guess like my life started getting rocky around high school. Like I went from like such a small elementary school and middle school to such a big high school and it was very hard for me to make friends. And so I started to feel like isolated and like being an only child, like you can only hang out with your parents so much as an only child, like growing up,
Hmm.
like they're your parents, like, but I mean, this is just my experience. And so I was really good at isolating. And so I started drinking, I'm also a recovering alcoholic. I'll just put that out. And so I started drinking junior year of high school and I actually loved it. Like I fell in love with my first drink and like it just took all the stress away and all the social anxiety away and like I felt like a part of something because I was always a part of like swimming and like like sports, field hockey, and after school stuff. But I really felt a part of like a community, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. Just like socially, I could hang out, and I thought it was cooler, and I was always trying to go to the parties, but no one drank like I did, and I would always have to bring more alcohol to the party that supplied alcohol, and if you didn't want to drink like me, then like I would go drink some like more and not like I would hide it essentially. And then it got worse in senior year when I thought I had senioritis because I was like, oh, after homework, I guess I'll like celebrate because I finished an essay with like drinking a little bit of my parents' wine. And then that escalated to college. I ended up taking a gap year. Um, and my parents didn't really understand what was happening. And the neighborhood that I grew up in, like everyone is, I guess, more focused on the outside, and no one really wants to talk about like the family drama because, like, I guess I just am very open with that stuff. But it wasn't really talked about, and we didn't really know what was happening. So I just tried every type of counseling and therapy before I decided I needed like treatment. Um, And so I spent a while just drinking in isolation while my parents went to work. And then summer rolled around and I got a summer job and I was drinking on the job and I was somehow getting away with it. Um, should have been fired, honestly. Um, and then like it just got really out of hand and I ended up driving drunk one night and getting in a serious accident. And I can talk about this today because that's no longer my life. Um, I know lots of people who still struggle with the disease of addiction, and it comes with such a bad stigma. And like, it's very hard to fight addiction. I'll just say that. Like, especially for me, like alcohol is my, I guess the best thing to compare it to is like a toxic ex. Like I loved it, like I seriously did, but it wasn't good for me. I just like couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it. And I used it for the wrong reasons and I couldn't stop myself. And so I got into this bad accident and I went to my first rehab and I was like 19. So I was still pretty young. I'm 22 now. I'm still young, but younger. And I just couldn't see my life without alcohol still. All my friends were doing it. I still went to a college that was big on partying. And after treatment, I went back to school and I was like, oh, nice. Like I can just pick up where I left off. And I ended up relapsing and it got crazy. Like it just got crazy. And for about a year, I was lying to people and hiding and I was miserable. Like I was really, really like miserable. I was failing my classes. I didn't want to talk about it. I would do everything and anything to pretend I was okay. And I really thought I had everyone fooled. Like I really did. And I did not look good. And I didn't like my grades didn't look good. And so I finally just had this, I don't know really what happened, but I just told myself like, I can't do this. Like my life is unmanageable today. And I got honest with my parents and I went back home and I went back to treatment and it was the best decision I have ever made for myself. And through all of that, especially the stigma and like my parents not understanding, like it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make for myself. And no one, like I just knew for myself, like I needed this. And I literally couldn't, like if I had to do it again, I would, if it meant I could be where I am today, because I am helping so many women today. And I'm sponsoring women. I just don't know. I just love my life today. Like I can do anything I put my mind to as long as I like know what I need to focus on, and that's taking it one day at a time and staying sober, because if I put anything in front of my recovery, I know I will lose it. But yeah, any questions?
Well, a few things. First of all, I'm glad that I literally had no idea that I'd hear you use the phrase one day at a time. The fact that my sign, if you're watching this, happens to say one day at a time, I guess that's
Oh my
fitting.
God, stop. I just saw that.
Yeah, we change it every episode. A few things. I'm so grateful and glad that you're okay and that you're here and that you're thriving and that you love life, because life is so beautiful, and with everything that you've been through, I know that you can probably say that where you are today, it wasn't a guarantee and it took so much to get to where you are. So before anything else, I just want to commend you for the steps you've taken.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's definitely a hard one, but a really good one.
Right. And it's so important that, we share these stories. Now, one thing that I think is interesting about what we can discuss here is, with addiction, particularly with alcohol, we hear about maybe the impact it has on our physical health. But really, I mean, obviously it takes an enormous toll on your mental health. So, we're going to get to how you got to the halfway house and sort of your journey. But really going back to the beginning, I want to know about where your mind was when the drinking started, when, or even maybe before you actually had your first drink. What were you feeling? How was your mental health at that time?
Yeah, okay, great. So that's a great question. My mental health, again, like as I said, I was swimming a lot and everyone knew me as the star swimmer and I was doing good in school. And so I just felt like I really had to like keep that reputation of like, oh, Abby, the great swimmer. And she's like always doing great. But like, honestly, I did feel really alone because again, I'm an only child and I felt I was like going into high school, I was going through that awkward phase where I like don't know how to like talk to people. And I was making all new friends, like everyone already knew each other. And so I was feeling really alone and I struggled with that. I never had like that clique, like that solid group of friends. I kind of like talked to everybody, but like never had that really close friend. So I mean, a lot of my really close friends was through the swim team, but like, I don't know. I don't feel like I could have talked to those friends about like my, like how I was feeling, like really feeling. And like, there's just so much stigma with like someone's true feelings. In my high school, like people would talk about mental health and like we would laugh about it, or we would not take it seriously, or like people were just so focused like on what they looked like on the outside, or like I would have a few friends that I could tell, um and then I'd tell someone else and I'd immediately get something like an awkward response, or like I don't know. So I just didn't feel like I could open up. And so when I finally first, like when I did take that drink, I was like, oh, period. Like I can hang out with the cool people and like screw the problems because like I don't feel it. I don't know. It just like took everything away from me. And so yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Lorraine, I just want to see what thoughts you may have so far with everything
Yeah.
Abby's told us.
I mean, I can't imagine the pressure that you must have felt, like, being the star swimmer and, keeping up grades. And I could see how that can be so stressful every day, keeping up a reputation in your community, in your town. Um, and then battling with feelings that you didn't know who to talk to because you
Mm.
didn't feel safe with anyone. And as an only child myself, and
And me.
Bennett, all three of us, we can definitely relate to that whole only child thing. So yeah.
Nice.
A couple things now. The article that you wrote in Rage Against Addiction, it was incredible, and it was so eye opening to what you were going through, and I was really moved by it, as I said in our intro. A couple things I want to pick up on. The first thing, just putting the drinking element aside, you talked about having ADHD. I have ADD. I've talked a lot about it on the show, and it's been challenging, and I'm curious for you, and I don't know if it relates to your story as far as what having that learning difficulty was like for you, but I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. Um, I remember when I kind of understood that I had ADHD and a learning disability. It was back in elementary school, and I was in this small math class, and it was just like normal multiplication. And it was very easy. Looking back at it, it's like really easy. But like at the time, I was like, I just don't get it. I like don't understand how you're doing this. And I couldn't focus in class. And my mom was like, she got me tested, and I didn't really understand what it was for. And then I finally, like the teachers understood, oh, like she's learning differently. Like she needs, and I started getting more tutors. And when I started realizing that I like didn't understand as quickly as other kids, like it kind of, like I would get very conscious, whatever.
Yeah.
I got,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
yeah. So, it just, I was in my head a lot growing up, and I would always get test anxiety. And yeah, it was just growing up with it was very difficult. But then once I understood and like figured out what works for me and what doesn't, I I was better with it. Like I kind of owned it. Like
Mm.
I'm awkward sometimes, but I own it. So like I kind of owned it. Like in high school, I was like, okay, like if I need a tutor, I need a tutor.
Yeah.
Right.
But growing up, I would say it was definitely difficult.
Yeah, I also totally learned to own that awkwardness now. The way we know each other is we were briefly at the same school for a period of time. I was actually there for 12 years, and their whole thing was if you have a learning disability or difficulty,
Yeah.
and so many
Mm-hmm.
different things. And so I found it interesting kind of being there in the younger years and then the older years where it was like first you're younger, so you're not really as aware of it, but then you're older and like you're about to graduate, and like people have this like negative perception of the school because they're saying like, oh well, you aren't like, it has nothing to do with intelligence, and so many brilliant creative minds are wired in a way that's different, like ours, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, what have you. And I think it is awesome to kind of go on that ride from sort of feeling vulnerable about it to then learning how to own it. I mean, I definitely
Mm-hmm.
think I've been there.
Yeah, for sure.
And another thing is, as I think Lorraine mentioned, we're all only children in this group. So I think that can start an interesting little tangent here, and kind of getting back to your story. I mean, was there a sense of loneliness that kind of has always been there due to being an only child?
Oh, for sure. I don't really talk about this a lot, but I was like really ignorant when I was young. I'm just gonna say that because like I'm gonna be honest and like call myself out. Like I didn't really understand like what adoption meant. I knew I was from Russia, but I didn't understand like the what exact I don't know. I just didn't understand it. So when I found out, um my parents had to sit me down and I was like, oh my God, like what is it? What is this? Like who are you? And my parents kind of like I know they love me and I know they're my parents and I love them with my whole heart. Like I really do. But growing up, there was always this feeling of like separation. I don't really know how to like describe it, but like people would always ask me, do you wonder who your real parents are? Or do you want to know where you came from? And I honestly like just kind of said no. And I didn't really think about it. And now that I'm like, and so, well, now that I'm older and I've met so many other people who are adopted, it's like crazy to like look back at that and realize how I don't really know where I was going with this, but basically, I would like tell my parent. I would always ask my mom, like, when are we having another kid? Like, when are we getting getting a brother or sibling? And that's what I meant by like ignorant. So like, and now like looking back at it, like that was awful of me to say, but I would always see my friends have siblings, and they would always have something to do. Like we would always go on fun adventures, and they'd always like hang out, and like I just didn't have that. So I was like, all right, gotta go like play with the cat or like play with the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least there were pets. I mean,
yeah. I mean, before I had pets, I would like play with my stuffed animals, and I was like, oh, like, but I mean, like, I had an imaginary friend, so like,
yeah. I had a couple of those for sure. I'd go outside and like just talk to myself and like pretend, and you know, it was a fun world with them. But,
yeah, Lorraine, you were just saying, Abby, we recorded an episode last night actually. We were talking about kind of the loneliness of being an only child. Lorraine, I know you've said before that it could be challenging at times to grow up and kind of feel left out, right?
Yeah, because it's like I felt so reliant on, you know, the very few friends that I had. And if they're busy, like, what do you do? Like, they're not there all the time. They're not in your house all the time. So it's and you know, like you said with your parents, like you don't want to be with them all the time. Like you love them, but like it's not the same.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, everybody in this room has mentioned at one point or another that we don't necessarily have huge friend groups. We more have people that are significant. Maybe it's just like a friend here and there. I think you mentioned, Abby, maybe kind of being more like they're separate and they're not all together, and finding different people in different places.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, and I want to get back to the whole thing about not fitting in, because I do wonder, you know, do you think that there was ever a part of your desire to escape, and that's what you found in the drinking? Did any of that come from not fitting in? I mean, I know you talked about at that point you were kind of the star student, you were swimming, and I guess maybe, you know, you were in high school, you had all these things going on, but I mean, I guess maybe feeling like you were the odd one out at some point may have had an impact on your decisions.
Definitely. I know all of the groups of people, like they would go out to party after football games or like go out for like movies, and they'd be drinking. And I was like, my dad once told me, I think it was freshman year of high school, either freshman or like ninth or eighth grade. He was like, Abby, if I ever catch you drinking, I want to make your life like a living hell, just to scare me. And it did scare me. And so I didn't pick up, like I didn't drink. And then when I did, I was like, you know what? Like everyone else is doing it, I might as well. So then I could fit in. Like I wanted to be a part of that group that could go out and drink, and I wanted to be invited to parties. And if I wasn't invited, I'd find a way there. Like I just like want, because I knew the drink would make me feel better, and it would take myself away of like not feeling a part of something. Because I like the buzz just took me out of it.
Yeah. God, I always think about this, like, because we're all on this kind of like, I don't want to get too philosophical, but we're all on this like journey to figure out who we are, and like high school is like the ultimate time when it's just like who am I? And I think it's interesting because the people that are like the cool kids that are hanging out together and, when you're kind of not in that group, it's like at the end of the day, I honestly think like there is something really awesome about not like fitting in because, you know, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. I think I'm kind of just like blabbing, but I mean,
Yeah.
Lorraine, what do you think? Like, I think that
Yeah.
it's definitely a
I have an
journey.
interesting standpoint here because I'm still in that environment of high school. I'm 17. So, I agree with Bennett though. I don't fit into those groups, and honestly, I'm really glad that I don't because I really think that a lot of it is fabricated and not. I don't think those groups are made up of people who are real to themselves. I think they follow one person or two people, and it's all just a group of followers, and they're not really being themselves at all.
Mm.
So it's like, why lose yourself in that? It's hard, but
Mm-hmm.
I always want to be a leader instead of a follower. That's just my philosophy on those things.
Same here.
That's what I did. I ended up trying to follow people.
Mm.
And one way through that was drinking because I knew everyone did it. So I was like, all right, I'll follow in your footsteps and I'll drink too. Except I just took it a step further.
Right. It's a hard thing to battle. It's like one thing's pulling you one way and the other thing's pulling you the other way. And it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And some people veer one way, some people veer the other way. And it's just how it goes.
Yeah, I got very lost doing that.
Yeah, I feel like once you kind of maybe escape into the alcohol, it's like the reason that you did it in the first place. I'm sure it kind of felt like you lose sense of direction because it took you away from the things that allowed you to be social, allowed you to be in environments with other people. And I did want to transition sort of from high school to college because you mentioned it. And I myself, I've talked about on the show, did not have a great college experience. I actually dropped out from one school, tried another one, didn't work, and now I'm at community college just trying to figure things out. But my first time, I had a very difficult time trying to fit in, and I kind of think there's two ways to think of college from a social standpoint. I think either you have so many people you can get to know that it's exciting, or if you're like me and you deal with terrible social anxiety, it is terrifying because the more people there are, and I don't know how many kids you had at your high school, Abby, but I found it terrifying to be at a college where there's all these people.
Yeah, college. Um, there's like 300 kids in my grade in high school, and so I knew a bunch of them were going to the same college. I went to Miami of Ohio, and I only did it for one semester. I did really well my first semester. And like I won't lie, like when I first started drinking it was manageable, but then like with the stress of school and trying to meet friends, it just got too much. But yeah, I did really well in my first semester, and so I thought I had that expectation of to like keep those grades up. And college, like my mom wanted me to join a sorority. I didn't. I was kind of like, okay, like still like trying to do like the following, and like everyone's rushing, so I might as well rush. And if everyone's going out tonight, like I guess I'll go out, when I really just wanted to sit inside and like have mac and cheese and like watch Netflix or something. Like I just felt like I had to do that. And I like didn't know who I was, and I wasn't taking the time to find out what I needed, especially in a toxic relationship. Like I had so many toxic relationships that just like I was so codependent at the time too, because I was lost in the drinking and I needed someone to co-sign my BS. So there were just so many things I didn't know about myself in order for me to succeed at the time. But yeah.
I relate a lot to that. I mean, I think it's again, I think it gets back to kind of going to college and like, it's this big journey, right? Like all of high school is like where you're going to go to college and then you go and you think it's going to be some kind of magical destination. But like, it sounds like for you, it made things more challenging. And really, I mean, given that the drinking had started before you got to school, I'm just wondering when you arrived, did you feel a sense of relief or could you tell pretty quickly that it was going to make things even worse?
I think when my drinking started in high school, I didn't look at it like alcoholism because I was so young, and I was also like, I just didn't know squat about alcoholism. I think my dad kind of knew, but my mom was just like co-signing and like enabling me and saying like, no, like she's too young, like it, again, like going back on what it looks like on the outside. We just didn't want to believe it. So then when I went into college, looking back at it now, I was relieved because I didn't have the stress and the weight of my parents trying to like tell me not to drink. I was like, oh, okay, like I'm by myself, I can drink how much, like whatever I want to drink, like whenever. But I knew that I still had to keep my grades up, so I didn't think it was going to be a problem after my first semester. But then near the end of the, like after, what was it, like Christmas break, I knew it was going to be an issue going back to school.
Yeah. Almost like a mental health check-in to kind of, I asked you, how was your mental health in the beginning? And then how was your mental health at that point? I mean, obviously things were really, really bad, but I think that, as it kind of got closer to, rock bottom, like what were you feeling in that moment when you were like, I can't stay here?
Um, yeah, I was honestly really overwhelmed when I went back to school after break because I knew my drinking had gotten worse, and there was just so much pressure of me being in a long distance relationship that I didn't know how to take myself out of. I am a people pleaser, so like I literally don't know how to break up with someone because I don't want to hurt their feelings, and like that's where I just don't even think about myself in those situations. I don't think about, okay, there's someone else and they can take care of themselves. What do I need to do for myself? And so when I went back, it was just so overwhelmed with grades, and like I didn't know how I was going to sustain my drinking and my grades. Like, because I hear all the time, like party hard or like study hard and party harder or something, or work hard, play hard, and just like the expectations of trying to match my second semester to my first, like was giving me so much anxiety because I knew it was going to be hard and I didn't really want to deal with it. So I just kept drinking, and it just got to a point where I couldn't do it. So I took a leave of absence.
Just to clarify, I'm curious, so as far as your social life when you were at school, was there, what were there friends? Were there no friends? What was that like? Were you alone all the time? Were there some people that you were connecting with?
Yeah, I had a small group of friends. I was friends with my roommate. We kind of had a rough patch, but that was because of my drinking. Like she knew I was drinking a lot, and I was kind of an a-hole. I wasn't, near the end, I wasn't a fun drunk. I was like a sad, depressing, like mean drunk. But yeah, I was friends with her sister and like two other people, but yeah, I never had like those close friends that you could like go study with, or I was like really just, it was really just me.
Yeah, that was my experience. Very, very lonely. Now, so okay, so you leave school, you go to rehab. I'm curious about this because I know you've been twice. If you could just walk us through, I mean, that first time getting there, what were you feeling? Were you scared? Were you hopeful that this would help? I mean, what's going on in your mind at that point?
Yeah, so I went to rehab after I got into that huge car accident. And like honestly, like the next morning when I sobered up and my dad had told me what had happened because I was in a blackout when I hit the poor lady. Um, I I really didn't want to. I like couldn't look myself in the mirror. I was like, "Are you like who?" Like it just. I was miserable. Like I was really miserable, and I didn't like who I'd become. And I was like, "All right, like I don't have a choice." Because we kind of had like a family intervention. They're like, Abby, you just hit someone like blackout drunk. Like you need help. So I was like, okay. Um, I agreed, and I didn't really know what rehab was, and I didn't really know what alcoholism was until I got there. And they start you going to meetings, and introducing you to the disease of alcoholism. And I, again, was just young. I was like, oh my God, like I'd hear people talk and I was like, oh, I didn't get there yet. Oh, that's not me. Like I didn't do that. Like I'm not an alcoholic. And I would just start enabling myself. And so I really, honestly, like I really like I was still sick. Like I didn't believe that I was an alcoholic. And I was still in this, I was in a different relationship, and the person I was with was also a heavy drinker at the time. So I was like, all right, like if I'm with this person who can co-sign my BS, like everything's fine. I can still lie and drink, like, because that's all my head was like at. Um, yeah, I honestly, like the first time was more so because I got in the car accident.
Do you think that that denial, was it societal? Do you think that just were there voices that were like, you hear all the time about people talking about alcoholics in such a negative connotation? Do you think that it was that kind of voice saying like you don't want to be one of them, or was it internal? Was it deeper? I mean, where was that denial coming from?
I think it was a little bit of that, but honestly, I think I knew I had a problem and I just wasn't ready to give it up.
Mm.
I just wasn't ready to stop drinking because I was so young and I knew I hadn't even turned 21 yet. And I was like, oh my God, like I still have to use a fake. Like, when can I use my real ID? And yeah, I honestly don't think I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lauren, any thoughts you got so far?
Yeah, I think it's addiction is such a complex thing, and I think you getting to a place to accept what's going on and then want to, or even have enough drive to um want to get better. That's something that's very, I think, challenging to get to that place, and it's hard to hear that it sometimes for many people it doesn't happen the first time, but I'm really commendable, as Bennett said, you went the second time, and it's commendable that you took that step again, and that it looks like you're in a good place, in a better place now.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Now, well, speaking of second time, if I'm correct, you go to rehab the first time and then you leave and go back. Can you fill me in on that timeline there?
Yeah, so after rehab, I went to an IOP, and it was like right across campus. So I was like, oh, perfect. I'll go to IOP, um, which is intensive outpatient. And they kind of just do therapy and talk about triggers and warning signs of relapse. And um, yeah, and that was like right across from campus. So I was like, oh, bet, like I can go back to school and just like everything will be fine. But like everyone, it was literally a party school. Like it was everywhere. It's not like, well, for me, like my addiction and my drug of choice was advertised literally everywhere. And like my walk from my sober living, which was also like right across from campus, to IOP, like everyone was day drinking. So I would see it every day. Um, and so I just like eventually I had like I want to say like 2 months sober, and I stayed there for like a solid 6 or 8 months. And then I started drinking because I found out people were like passing drug tests at my sober living and getting away with it. So it was just an all around poorly administered sober living.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't the best. But I got away with passing my drug tests, and I drank for a very long time. And then it just got really, really tiring. And I got really physically sick. I had hair down to my, like, past my shoulders. And near the end of my drinking career, like, almost all of it had fallen out. And, like, it was just, like, it was really bad.
Wow.
And, like, I was getting sick in the mornings, just the hangovers. Like, it's physically and mentally exhausting. And so that's when I knew, like, my life was like, I just had enough. Like, it wasn't fun anymore. Like, it was, and I wanted to stop. Like, I've wanted to stop before. I just couldn't. Like, the addiction is just so strong. And I know so many people around me who still struggle with it. And, you know, what's sad about it is that not everybody gets the chance to get clean. And I've had to watch so many people die this past year because they can't do it, and or they're too scared to ask for help. And that's also one of the negatives with the stigma and like the reputation of addicts.
Going back the second time, I mean, I know that that was when things really worked, if I'm correct. So what was that like?
So I knew I had enough and my life was unmanageable, and I was at the point where I literally just would do anything to stop drinking because I wanted to stop, and I wanted to stop for a while. I just couldn't. And I would literally do anything just to not drink. And so I started taking suggestions, and I just listened to people, and it was very hard to go back to rehab because the people, because that was my second time. And well, obviously, but I knew the people who worked there still, and they had to see me come back in the second time. And I was just embarrassed. And I was like, you know what? Like, I didn't get it. But like today, I'm not embarrassed because so many people do it. Like, so many people have to do it more than once. And that's okay. As long as you don't stop trying. And because like literally it can get to a point where it's life or death, and I could see that for myself, and like near the end it was getting really bad. And so I took suggestions, and after the 28 days of treatment I wanted to go back to school, and they were like, no, I think you should do this extended program. And I was like, fine, I'll take a suggestion, because like after that I'll go back to school. And the extended care was 3 months, and it was the best 3 months of my life. Well, everything was the best of my life. And so I went, and I learned how to advocate for myself, how to like talk to other women. That's where I got my sponsor, my first and only sponsor. Yeah, I mean, that really helped me feel more comfortable with being an alcoholic and really start like discovering who I am, what I'm battling against, and what I need in order to like succeed. And so then after the 3 months, I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna go home. And they were like, no, I really think you should go to this halfway house. And I was like, oh my God, I had this spitting image of a halfway house that people are fighting. Like, it was just the most negative thing, because that's all I heard growing up. Like before extended care, like all I heard was like negative things about halfway houses. And literally, like, that is just not the case. Halfway houses and like addiction in general is just not what everyone says they are. I had seen the women before me go through halfway houses and turn out to be like beautiful women of society, and I wanted that. I wanted to be a woman of grace and dignity. And so I made this goal for myself when I got there. I was like, you know what, like I really want to become a house manager, and I want to help other people with this, because I think like anyone, especially like at my age, like is incredibly hard. Like, it's incredibly hard to do it. And I want to show people that it works. And so I stayed. And after like 4 months, I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna go home. And then I was like, you know what, no, you just stick it out. And I was a resident for, I can't do the math in my head right now, but I was a resident. And then like in November, they asked me to become a house manager, and I was like, no way. So I took the opportunity, and I have been a house manager since. And I literally, like, I love it. I love what I do. It's stressful, yes, but seeing the women like change and transform and go through the path that I went through to get to where they are now is amazing. Like, not everyone gets the chance to do that, and not everyone gets the chance to watch that. And so it's just like taking suggestions and doing the next right thing one day at a time. Because literally, if I think about it, like if I think about, oh my God, what's work going to be like tomorrow? Like, is it going to be so stressful? Or like, what's work going to be like next week? like I'll start overthinking, and like next week hasn't even happened. So like why stress about it now? Like you literally, like you don't have any control over that, Abby. So like why are you stressing about that? And it's just like working the 12 steps and being in recovery has just totally changed my way of thinking. And that's just crazy to me. Like that's insane in like a great way. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, a couple things. One thing I'm thinking about is Lorraine and I talk all the time, I mean, just Lorraine, you talk about how going through high school can be tough. I mean, just your schoolwork and being part of the drama club and volunteering on the weekends, like you have so many things, and you talk about taking it one day at a time. And
Yeah.
obviously, Abby, with these extraordinary circumstances that you've overcome, I think that it's such an amazing accomplishment for anybody in any situation at any level, just to be able to say like, I can do this if I just take it one day at a
One day
time,
at a time.
one step at a time.
That's huge. I think everyone should take it one day at a time.
Yeah. No, when I turned my mindset into one day at a time, like it really helped me, because I would always stress about, things that were so beyond the day I was in at that time, or like the time I was in at that time. And it like consumed me thinking about things that wasn't present. And so it's just taking one day at a time has really helped me. And I'm sure it helped Bennett. It's helped you. So it's a very good line to live by.
I have a few questions just being out of curiosity. So you're in this halfway house. Are you living with a roommate? Or are you in your own room? What's the living situation?
Can you define that too, by the way, just before, so if anyone doesn't understand what that is?
Yeah. So a halfway house is basically just a sober living, like a residential house or apartment, but I am the house manager, and I take care of 8 other women right now. And they have a curfew, they have to do chores, kind of just like basic things for someone to be able to take that next step and to live on their own, or like it's kind of like a transitional living, but with like a little bit more strict. And like drug tests, I have to do drug tests and room searches. So it's like that extra step of accountability for the people who need it. And I definitely needed it, because I'd be hiding and lying and stuff like that. And yeah.
I mean, you must have such a, even before you became a manager, you must have had such a sense of community. I imagine that must have improved your mental health so much, just to have people who knew what you were going through. I got to imagine that was like almost a weight off your shoulder.
Oh my God, yes. I have never felt more a part of something than I do today. It's because literally, like, yes, everyone has a different story and everyone goes through different things, but all the feelings are the same. Like all the like the biggest, like the problem is the same, is that we take something to cover something else, or to take something else away, and that ends up like ruining our lives. Right. But yeah, I've never felt so like I don't feel alone anymore. I'll just say that. Like I don't feel alone. Like they are my family. Like yes, they're different. Like they're not my blood family, but like
no, but they're yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, age ranges, if you don't mind me asking, of who's living in the house?
Yeah. Literally in recovery, the ages like don't matter. I had people in here from like 19 to 70. Like it's a big scale.
Gosh, the amount of pride you must have felt when you found out you were becoming the manager. That was I mean, we talk about taking one day at a time, and that's just an achievement, but such a big goal that you had, that you achieved. I mean, what did that feel like when you found out that, that dream was coming true?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. Everyone knew I wanted to become house manager. I honestly didn't think it was going to happen so fast in my timeline. And so when it did, I was like, oh my God. And I was definitely like on a little pink cloud for a minute, but reality is still life. Like life is still life, and life is on life's terms. And so I had to overcome some real challenges, and with myself mostly, and set boundaries with my friends, because it's hard being a boss and a coworker at the same time, like a friend and a boss. Like you have to balance those lines. So it's definitely a huge challenge, but it is nothing but helped me grow in the last few months, and I'm months to come. Like, I can't wait.
Yeah,
I
almost
commend you. I commend you. I think what you're doing is really great.
Oh, thank you.
Me too. And honestly, you know, I want to give you a chance to brag about yourself. What do you think makes you such a great house manager?
Mm. That's so funny. Honestly, I don't know. I want to say my positivity, because I have heard so many times before, they're like, Abby, how are you so positive? Why are you so happy? And I'm like, well, with the stuff I've been through, I've been pretty miserable, and I've finally had this second chance at life. And I don't want to waste it. Like, if I miss the good moments, or if I try and like lessen the good moments, like, I'm going to miss them. And so I start saying yes to things, and I start seeing the good in literally everything. And if there isn't any good, just being like, okay, it literally could be worse, and you have to sit through your feelings. And I can do that today because I don't have to drink.
Mm.
It's honestly just staying positive and like surrounding yourself with the good people, and asking for help, because it's still so easy sometimes to isolate, especially because since I'm a manager, I have a room to myself. And when the girls are out in the meetings, like, it's easy to sit here and just like think about, would a drink seem nice? But like, I have people today that I can call and like ask for help, and it's being able to like acknowledge that I'm still like, the disease is still there, and that it's going to be okay.
I mean, what an experience for you to be, I imagine, almost like a mentor to these people, and to kind of, you know, you're somebody who has lived through it, survived it, and then I feel like that they must feel so much comfort being able to have you to lean on, because, you know, you've been there and you can guide them through it, you know, because they're on their own journey. And I imagine it must be kind of full circle to think about where you've come from and then to help these other people along the way.
Oh, definitely. I mean, people come from all different walks of life and seasons of life. But I've definitely like had women literally go to the same rehab and the same extended care and the same halfway house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. And I can relate to that. And they're like, yeah, yeah. So I really, yeah, there's just endless connections. And again, the feeling is all the same. So like, at the end of the day, if someone needs to talk about something, like, I'll be there to listen, and I'll be there to do my best to understand. If I haven't had that experience, it doesn't mean I won't. If I pick up a drink again, it might happen. Like, my nevers are like not yets, if that makes sense. Because I don't ever want to say that I have this, like, I got this, because it could get you at any time. Like, I have seen people with 20 plus years of sobriety and they still relapse because the addiction is just so strong. But at the end of the day, it is taking it one day at a time, and just like sharing that common feeling of hopelessness at like that we were at, and realizing you can get past that.
Lorraine, I wonder if you have any questions about anything Abby said so far.
Um, how does hearing other people's experiences and stories, like, how does that, like, what goes in your head when people tell you about their experiences? Like, did you kind of reflect back of your experiences, or like, I'm just curious what your brain does when you hear other experiences. Like, how do you talk with other people when they share those things with you? Like, how does that conversation go?
Yeah. So it really depends on what I'm hearing, but I'll just give an example. So like, if I'm hearing something that I haven't done that could be like, that is worse than my story, I should say. Not worse, I don't know how to word this, but like, so okay, I've never been to jail. If I hear someone telling me about their court date coming up, or like they have to go to jail, that just like humbles me, like, that's something that I can't relate to, but I can understand the anxiety, and like I can understand the stress that they might be like, in the worry.
Mhm.
and how that could cause someone to relapse. But I can't speak too much on it because that's a not yet for me. But when I'll say this, like when I first went to rehab the first time, if I had heard that, I'd be like, oh, that's not me. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not an alcoholic. But like today, I'm like, yeah, that could be me if I picked up.
Okay.
Like, we're still the same. We still have the same disease. And like, no one here is better or worse than each other.
Mhm.
The disease is still just as strong. I just have tools in my toolbox today. I love saying that. And I can use them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's possible. Like, the tools are there, and I'm just so happy to be able to have them and to help someone else at the end of the day, no matter what they share with me.
Mm. Wow. Any other questions, Lorraine?
Um, what is your mindset now? Like where can you give like a summary of like where you're at mentally? I mean we know that you're doing this great amazing thing right now. But what is going on up there if you can kind of describe best of your abilities?
Yeah. So again, like, the disease is still there, and the disease can show itself in different ways and not just by through drinking. Sorry, my phone was vibrating.
No worries.
Um, it can show itself through impulse decisions, spending too much money, um, talking to the wrong people. So an example of that would be like if I was feeling impulsive one day and I knew it could be a craving or something, I would reach out to someone who I shouldn't be talking to, like an ex or someone who enabled my drinking. And so those urges like still sometimes show itself. Like, I had cravings today, I'll be honest, when I went to DC to visit my parents. There's this big parade and everyone was day drinking. And I was like, wow, I love to drink. A drink would sound so nice right now. But like, again, I had those tools that I could be like, no, like, play the tape through. If I ended up drinking, like, I'd lose like literally everything. Um, so like ultimately I am 110% way more happy with the life I have today. And I can own like my awkwardness and my positivity,
Mm.
even though people are like, why are you so positive? How are you so positive? Can you tone it down? I'm like, no.
Never tone it down.
No.
Yeah.
Never tone it down. What? No.
Yeah, no. So I'm just I like, it's always there, but like, I gotta stay on my A game and be one step ahead of it.
Right.
Yeah. Never tone down the positivity because I'm thinking the
Never.
same thing. Excuse my French, those people that say tone down the positivity. I mean, really, like, as I mentioned in the beginning, I was sort of introduced to your story by just kind of seeing the little post that you would make on Facebook where I was just like, wow. And even not knowing you, I was just like, you radiate so much positivity and you seem to enjoy the little things in life and you're so grateful and appreciative to all the people that have been there for you, whether it's
It's all about the
family
little
or
things.
friends. What's that?
So it's all about the little things.
Oh yeah, totally. And
Mhm.
you've talked about again how grateful you are for these people and the fact that you're able to show up for them because this has admittedly, I'm sure been, it's been tough on you, but it's been tough on other people in your life and they've supported you through all of it. They've been there for you in different ways. And so if anybody and any of these people that may be listening or watching right now, what do you want to say to the people that have been there for you, that have been your rock, that love you, that care for you, that are here for you all the time? What's your message to them?
Thank you for being patient. Like, seriously, this is a very brutal, long, and awful, ugly disease, and it turns a person into a shell of a person.
Mm.
Like, I was just existing and I wasn't living, and today I get to live. And I thank you for your patience.
That's beautiful. And Abby, I mean, you've given so much insight into what somebody who may also be struggling with addiction is going through. You've been there, you've overcome so much, and I want to say how proud of you I am because we barely know
Thank
each
you.
other, but I just am so inspired by you, and I think that you're just a remarkable human being, and I can't wait to see, where life takes you because the joy that you have for life and what you've already been able to do and how you've been able to turn things around for yourself, it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I was at work the other day and they were giving out, I'll just say this because it's the little things. They were handing out banana and strawberry yogurt and then gushers. And I was so excited. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't take much to get you happy. I was like, mm-mm, just the little things.
You have overcome so much, and so I want to ask you, and I know it's not easy, but of course there's still challenges for you, like you've said, and for anybody who's listening or watching who might be struggling with addiction, whether they are, maybe where you were a couple years ago or they're similar to where you are right now, do you have any advice or any messages or words of wisdom for anybody out there who may be suffering from the same thing?
Yeah, I would say don't stop trying and start off by being honest with yourself because as soon as I got honest with myself, it hit it hit different because I admitted to myself like this is not help, like my life is just unmanageable and the only way better is to ask for help, and you can't get honest with anyone else if you're not honest with yourself.
Yeah, and that's so important when we're talking about mental health. We say it in general because with anything, anxiety, depression, feeling suicidal, feeling lost, I mean, and so many different things, it applies. Seek for help, there's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's so important that you do it. Lorraine, any final thoughts or words,
No,
comments you
I
want?
just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story. It, addiction in any sort of capacity. It's it's a really difficult, but also I commend you for, from day one to now, how you've, really transformed your life. So I'm really grateful that we could have you on and that your story is truly impactful. And I really appreciate you having you on.
Guys, thank you so much for listening or watching. You can check us out on TikTok, Instagram at Mental Health on the Mic, mentalhealthonthemic.com. Abby, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.